Okay, so converting fractions to decimals is a little bit more challenging. As we did in class, there's a few things that you need to remember. Now, for a question like this, 3 over 4, or 3/4, if you were to get your calculator and punch in 3 divided by 4, you'd get 0.75. But in this test, you're not allowed to use your calculator, so you have to work it out manually. So there's some steps involved here. So the first thing you need to do is put the denominator on the outside of the division sign. So in this case, we'll put the denominator, which is the number 4, on the outside of the division sign. That's the first step. The next step is to put the numerator inside the division sign. So we do that. Okay. The next step is to put a decimal after the numerator. So we do that. The next step is to put a 0 after the decimal. And the final step is to put another decimal directly above the decimal inside here. So again, you have to make sure that it's directly above this decimal inside. So we'll do that as well. Okay, so now we've done the steps that we need to go ahead and solve this type of question. So the first question we ask is, how many groups of 4 go into the number 3? Now we know that it can't. So now we go to the next digit. Now I want you to treat the 3 and the 0 here as if it was a whole number. Forget about the decimal point here. Treat it as the number 30. Okay, so just imagine that this decimal point here is an imaginary decimal point. Okay, so treat this number as not 3.0 but rather 30. Okay, so now we ask the question, how many groups of 4 go into the number 30? We know that 4 times 7 is 28. So that means that 4 goes into 30 equally 7 times. So we write the number 7 up here. Now the remainder, because we know that 4 doesn't go into 30 equally, there is a remainder. But there are 7 groups of 4 in the number 30. But there is a remainder, and that remainder is 2, because 30 minus 28 is 2. So we write the remainder over here, and then we put a 0 after that remainder. So now we have this as the number 20. So now we ask, how many groups of 4 go into the number 20? We know that there are 5 groups of 4 in the number 20. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. And there are no remainders. So if you remember, I said if you divide 3 divided by 4, you'll get 0.75. And this is the manual way of working it out. We get the same answer, 0.75. So let's try another one. Let's try question I, which is 8 over 25. So again, remember the first step is to write the denominator, which is 25, to write it on the outside of the division sign. So we go ahead and we do that. The next step is to write the numerator inside the division sign. So we do that. The next step is to put a decimal after that number. So just remember it's an imaginary decimal. And the next step is to put a 0 after that decimal. Okay? The next step is to put a decimal directly above the decimal inside the division sign. So remember, it has to be directly above. So it can't be anywhere else but there. Okay. So now we're ready to go ahead and solve this question. So the question we're asking is, how many groups of 25 go into the number 8? It can't. So now we ask, how many groups of 25 go into the number 80? Remember, don't treat this as 8.0. Treat it as the number 80. So we know that 25 goes into 50 twice. Another 25 takes us up to 75. So that's the closest we can get to 80 without going over. So 25 goes into 80 3 times. And there is a remainder of 5 because 80 minus 75 is 5. So once we got the remainder down, we put a 0 after the remainder. Now we're asking the question, 50 divided by 25, or how many groups of 25 go into 50? We know that 25 plus 25 is 50, so 25 goes into 50 twice. And there are no remainders, so your final answer should be 0.32. So 8 over 25 as a decimal is 0.32. So that should be your final answer. Okay, we'll just do one more. So we've done for A and for I. Let's do one more. Let's do H. So you should do all of these, by the way, but I'm just showing you a few so that you know how to do the rest. So we'll do for H. Okay, so the first step is to write down the denominator on the outside of the division sign. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that. Now the next step is to write the numerator on the inside of the division sign and include a decimal point after it. It may be a good idea to immediately put the decimal point above the division sign as well, so you don't forget. And then after we put the decimal point behind the numerator, we'll just add a 0 after it there. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and try and solve this question. We want to convert 1 over 50 into a decimal. Okay, so first question is, how many times does 50 go into 1? It doesn't, so we just put a 0 here. How many times does 50 go into the number 10? Remember, we don't treat it as 1.0, we treat it as the number 10. Now, how many times does 50 go into 10? It doesn't, so we'll just put a 0 here. Now, what do? So, in this case, all we need to do is just add another 0 inside the division sign. So now we've changed this 10 to the number 100. We can do that. So now we're asking the question, how many groups of 50 go into the number 100? So we know that 50 goes into 100 twice. Okay, so now your final answer should be 0.02.